I want you to treat this message with all urgency and utmost attention. We had to hold off on the main experience we intended to share with you, family, because what was recently sent to us is so urgent and needs to be treated fast. Don't skip this video for any reason, beloved. This brother mentioned 3 nations that need to get prepared for this major hit. Kindly watch to the end to save yourself and your family. Anywhere you are across the globe, drop your location so that our prayer team will continue to pray with you, that you be accepted from what is to come. I will begin reading this experience. I'm writing this knowing full well what it could cost me. My career, my reputation, maybe even my freedom. The military has strict rules about what we can and cannot say, especially when it comes to things that might cause public panic. But after what happened to me on October 12, 2025, and after hearing about Atlas and what it did to those observatories, I can't stay silent anymore. People need to know what's coming. They need to prepare. I won't tell you my name. I won't tell you exactly where I was stationed or what unit I serve with. What I can tell you is that I'm a U.S. Army soldier, been in service for 8 years now, and I've seen my share of things that would keep most people awake at night. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for what I experienced during our training exercise that day. Let me be clear about something first. When this happened to me, when I told the few people I trusted about what I saw, nobody believed me. Not my buddies, not the medics, not even the chaplain. They all thought it was heat exhaustion, dehydration, maybe even PTSD acting up in a weird way. I started to believe them too. I mean, how could what I experienced be real? It was impossible. It didn't make any logical sense. But then the news started, coming in about Atlas, about how it fired that beam at Earth, about how it hit those telescope facilities and left behind data that scientists can't even understand, about escort objects repositioning themselves and countdown sequences hidden in alien code. Suddenly, what I saw doesn't seem so crazy anymore. Suddenly, it all fits together in a way that terrifies me. That's why I'm breaking protocol. That's why I'm risking everything to tell this story. Because if what I saw is connected to Atlas, if what those beings showed me is really about to happen, then we're running out of time. The countdown isn't just in some data file in Puerto Rico. It's ticking down in reality, and when it reaches 0, everything changes. So here's what happened. It was October 12th, 2025. We were doing a standard training exercise in a remote location. I can't tell you where, but it was hot, dry, and far from civilization. The kind of place where you can see the stars so clearly at night that it feels like you could reach up and touch them. We'd been out there for 3 days already, running drills, practicing tactical maneuvers. The usual stuff. That morning started normal enough. We got up before dawn, had our rations, and prepared for another day of exercises. But I remember feeling off. Not sick exactly, but strange. Like something in the air had changed. A few of the other guys mentioned feeling it too, this weird pressure, like the atmosphere itself was heavier somehow. Around mid-morning, we were doing a long-distance march. The sun was brutal, beating down on us without mercy. I'd done these marches 100 times before, knew how to pace myself, how to stay hydrated, how to push through the discomfort. But this time was different. With each step, I felt weaker. My vision started getting fuzzy around the edges. My heart was pounding harder than it should have been. I thought I was just having an off day. Pushed through it like I'd been trained to do. But then everything went dark. I don't remember falling. 1 second I was walking. The next second I was somewhere else entirely. Not unconscious, not dreaming. Somewhere else. Somewhere real. The first thing I noticed was that I wasn't in the desert anymore. I was standing in a space that I can't even properly describe. It wasn't like being on Earth. There was no ground beneath my feet, but I wasn't floating either. There was light everywhere, but I couldn't see where it was coming from. And the air, if you could call it that, felt alive somehow, like it was watching me. That's when I saw them. The 7 angels. Now, I need you to understand something. I grew up going to church, but I wasn't what you'd call religious. I believed in God in that distant, theoretical way a lot of people do. I'd never had any kind of spiritual experience, never seen anything I couldn't explain. So when I say I saw angels, I know how it sounds. But I saw them. They were as real as anything I've ever seen in my life. They were massive. Not just tall, but big in a way that made me feel like an ant standing next to skyscrapers. Each one was different, but they all had this presence about them, this authority that made it clear they were guardians of something important. They stood in formation, spread out in a pattern that I later realized was positioned around the Earth. I couldn't see the Earth from where I was, but somehow I knew that's what they were protecting. They weren't alone. As my eyes adjusted to this place, wherever it was, I started seeing more figures. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They were angels too, but different, darker. There was something wrong about them, something that made every instinct in my body scream danger. These weren't protectors. These were destroyers, the fallen angels. That's what they were. I didn't hear anyone say it, but I knew it the same way you know fire is hot without having to touch it. They were gathering, assembling into formations of their own, and I could feel their intention like it was being broadcast directly into my mind. They were coming for Earth. They wanted to cause destruction, chaos, suffering. They wanted to end mankind, not just kill us, but erase us completely, like we were a mistake that needed to be corrected. Then the battle started. I've been in combat. I've heard explosions, felt the ground shake from artillery, seen the flash of gunfire in the dark. But this was something else entirely. This was war on a scale that human minds aren't built to comprehend. The 7 guardian angels moved first. They positioned themselves between the dark angels and whatever path led to Earth. Their movements were coordinated, practiced, like they'd fought this battle before or had been preparing for it since the beginning of time. When the two forces collided, reality itself seemed to shake. I felt it in my chest, in my bones, in parts of me that I didn't even know could feel things. Light and darkness crashed together, and the sound, it wasn't really sound, but I don't know how else to describe it, was deafening. The dark angels fought with rage and hatred. They threw themselves at the guardians again and again, trying to break through their line. There were so many of them, wave after wave, each one desperate to reach Earth and carry out their destructive mission. But the 7 guardians held. They fought with a precision and power that the dark angels couldn't match. One by one, the fallen angels were thrown back, defeated, cast down into darkness. The battle seemed to last for hours, but I had no way to measure time in that place. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the last of the dark angels was defeated. The guardians had won. Earth was safe, at least that's what I thought. As the battle ended, something else started happening. The space around us began to shake violently, not from the fighting, but from something else, something external. The shaking grew stronger and stronger until I thought reality itself might tear apart. That's when I saw them. The particles. They were huge, larger than anything I'd ever imagined, like mountains floating in space. I couldn't tell where they were coming from. They seemed to just appear out of the darkness, but once I saw them, I couldn't look away. There were many of them scattered throughout the space around Earth, but 3 in particular were moving. Moving toward our planet, the 7 guardian angels stopped what they were doing. They turned to look at these massive objects, and for the first time, I felt something like concern coming from them. They spoke to each other, but not with words. I could somehow understand their communication anyway, like it was being translated directly into my thoughts. The one on the left, the one who seemed to be the leader somehow, said something that made my blood run cold. Woe upon the Earth, I didn't understand. They'd just won the battle. They'd stopped the dark angels from reaching us. Why would there be woe upon the Earth? I don't know if I actually spoke or just thought the question, but somehow one of them heard me. The leader turned toward me, and I felt his attention like a physical weight. He answered my question, not with words, but by showing me. My vision changed. Suddenly I could see Earth below me, blue and green and beautiful, spinning slowly in the darkness. I could see the 3 massive particles closer now, their trajectory taking them straight toward the planet I called home. Then the leader showed me what would happen when they hit. The first one came down a week after the battle. I watched it descend through Earth's atmosphere, burning as it came, leaving a trail of fire across the sky that could be seen for thousands of miles. When it struck, the impact was beyond anything in human experience. I saw the ground ripple like water. Mountains crumbled to dust in seconds. Entire cities vanished in the shockwave. The atmosphere itself ignited, burning bright enough to be seen from space. A massive plume of debris shot upward, so high that it reached into the upper atmosphere, blocking out the sun. But the worst part wasn't the immediate destruction. It was what came after. The impact triggered earthquakes across the entire planet. Volcanoes that had been dormant for thousands of years erupted simultaneously. Tsunamis hundreds of feet high raced across the oceans, drowning coastlines and islands. The very ground beneath us became unstable, splitting open in massive cracks that swallowed everything in their path. And this was just the first one. 1 week later, the second particle struck. This one hit somewhere else, I'll tell you where in a moment, and the destruction was even worse because Earth was already weakened from the first impact. The planet's systems were failing. The atmosphere was poisoned with ash and debris. The oceans were churning with unprecedented storms. And now another mountain-sized object crashed into us with the force of 1,000 nuclear weapons. The weather went insane. Hurricanes formed over land. Tornadoes spawned in clusters, dozens at a time. The temperature dropped rapidly as more and more sunlight was blocked by the debris clouds. Snow fell in places that had never seen winter. Crops died in the fields. Rivers and lakes froze solid. Then came the third one. Another week later, the final impact. By this point, Earth was barely recognizable. The third strike was like a mercy killing, finishing what the first two had started. I watched as the continents themselves began to shift, as the planet's crust buckled under the repeated trauma. I saw volcanic eruptions so massive that entire regions were buried under molten rock. I saw the seas boil and the skies turn black. Throughout all of this, I kept trying to see where these things were hitting. The guardian angel showed me glimpses, but not clearly enough to identify exact locations. I'm not sure if that was intentional, like he was protecting me from knowing too much, or if my human mind just couldn't process the information properly. But I saw enough to recognize some things. After the first impact, I saw a vision of a city in ruins. And there, lying broken on the ground among the rubble, was something I recognized instantly: the Statue of Liberty. It was toppled, partially buried in debris, her torch extinguished forever. That meant the first one hit somewhere near America, close enough to cause that level of destruction to New York. The second impact showed me something else. A familiar structure, gold and gleaming even through the dust and fire. A dome, the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem. But in my vision it was cracked, partially collapsed, surrounded by devastation. The second particle had struck somewhere near Israel. The third location I saw was less clear. I got impressions of different places, different landmarks, but nothing as definite as the first two. The vision was fading by then, and I was being pulled back toward my body. The last thing the guardian angel showed me, before everything went dark, was a timeline. Not in numbers or dates that I could read, but in feelings and impressions. The countdown had already started. We didn't have long. Weeks, maybe. Possibly just days. Then I was back in the desert, lying on my back, staring up at the bright blue sky, with 3 of my squad members standing over me shouting my name. They told me I'd been unconscious for less than a minute. The medic checked me over and said I'd collapsed from heat exhaustion. They gave me water, made me rest in the shade, and by evening I was cleared to continue training. Just another soldier who pushed too hard and learned his limits, but I knew better. What I'd experienced wasn't a hallucination. It wasn't a dream. It was real. The thing is, when I came back to consciousness, when I first opened my eyes and saw my buddies looking down at me with concern, the first word out of my mouth was Jesus, not as a curse or an expression of surprise. It was a prayer, a plea, maybe even a thank you for being allowed to return. One of the guys laughed it off, said I must have thought I was dying. But he was closer to the truth than he knew. For days afterward, I wrestled with what to do. I tried to convince myself it had all been in my head. I threw myself into my duties, focused on my training, tried to act normal. At night, I'd lie awake in my bunk, staring at the ceiling, seeing those guardian angels in my mind, hearing the echo of woe upon the earth. I didn't tell anyone. How could I? Hey guys, I had a vision where I saw angels fighting demons and then 3 giant space rocks are going to destroy the planet. They'd have me in psychiatric evaluation before I finished the sentence. I'd be discharged, probably with a diagnosis that would follow me for the rest of my life. So I stayed quiet. I suffered alone with what I knew. Then Atlas made its move. When the news started coming in about the beam, about the targeting of the observatory facilities, about the countdown sequences hidden in the data, my hands started shaking. I had to excuse myself from the briefing room and go outside where I could breathe. Don't you see? It's all connected. Those escort objects around Atlas that reposition themselves, those are like the particles I saw being moved into position. The beam hitting Earth, that was a warning, a message telling us that something's coming. And that countdown sequence, that's the same timeline the guardian angel showed me. Atlas isn't just some asteroid behaving strangely. It's part of this. Maybe it's one of the 3 particles I saw. Maybe it's something else entirely, but it's involved in what's coming. I'm certain of it. I've spent the last few weeks watching the news obsessively, checking astronomy websites, reading everything I can about Atlas. The scientists say the escort objects are unprecedented. They say the beam's targeting was impossibly precise. They say the data can't be decoded because it uses mathematics and physics beyond our understanding. Of course it does. It's not human technology. It's not even necessarily physical technology. What I saw in that vision, that was spiritual warfare spilling over into the physical realm. Those massive particles weren't just rocks or debris. They were weapons, tools being used in a conflict that's bigger than nations or armies or anything humanity has ever dealt with. And we're caught in the middle. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking I'm crazy, that I had a medical episode, and I'm connecting it to current events, because my brain is trying to make sense of trauma. I understand that. I've thought the same thing myself 100 times, but then I remember the detail. The clarity, the way everything I saw had weight and substance and reality to it. The way those guardian angels looked at me with recognition, like they knew I was seeing something I wasn't supposed to see. The way the leader specifically showed me those 3 impacts, those 3 locations, like he wanted me to know so I could warn others. That's why I'm writing this now. Not because I'm certain everyone will believe me. Most won't. But because some might. And those people might prepare. They might make plans, protect their families, stock up on supplies, move inland from the coasts, do whatever they can to increase their chances when the impacts come. Because they are coming. I know it like I know my own name. The timeline is short. Based on what I saw and what's happening with Atlas, I don't think we have much longer. Maybe weeks, maybe less. The countdown that the scientists found in Atlas's transmission, that's not abstract. That's literal. When it reaches 0, the first impact will occur. I wish I could tell you more. I wish the vision had been clearer about the exact locations, the exact dates, the exact nature of what's coming. But I can only tell you what I saw and what I felt. 3 massive objects are going to strike Earth. The first near America, possibly hitting the East Coast given what I saw of the Statue of Liberty. The second near Israel, close enough to damage Jerusalem. The third, I don't know, but each one will be catastrophic. Each one will trigger secondary disasters that might be even worse than the impacts themselves. Earth will survive. I know that much. The planet has survived extinction events before, and it will survive this. But human civilization as we know it, I'm not so sure. The level of destruction I witnessed was biblical in scale. Society might not make it through intact, but here's the thing that gives me hope, as strange as that might sound. The guardian angels won their battle. The dark angels, those beings that wanted to end mankind entirely, were defeated. That means we're not meant to be wiped out. We're meant to survive this, even if survival means going through hell first. I think the impacts are inevitable. I think they're part of something bigger, some cosmic plan or test that I don't fully understand. But I also think we can make it through if we're prepared, if we work together, if we don't give in to panic or despair. That's really why I'm risking everything to write this. Not just to warn you, though that's important, but to tell you that there's still hope. Even in the face of destruction that seems unsurvivable, there are forces watching over us. I saw them. I witnessed their power and their dedication to protecting Earth. We won't be alone when the darkness comes. I don't know what happens to me after I send this out into the world. Maybe nothing. Maybe it'll get buried in the endless noise of the internet, and no one will pay attention to one more crazy person claiming to have had a vision. Maybe the military will track it back to me and I'll face consequences. Either way, I had to try. I had to speak up. To my fellow soldiers, to my brothers and sisters in arms who might read this, I know you're thinking I've violated our code. You're right, I have. But our duty is to protect our country, our people, our world. Sometimes that means following orders, and sometimes it means breaking them to do what's right. To the scientists studying Atlas, please keep looking. Keep analyzing that data. The answers are there. The countdown is real. Figure out what it means before it's too late. To everyone else, prepare. I don't mean panic or run around screaming that the end is near. I mean make rational preparations for a major disaster. Stock food and water. Have emergency plans. Know where the safe zones are in your area. Stay connected with your loved ones. And most importantly, don't lose hope. What's coming is going to be terrible. I won't lie about that. What I saw would break most people just from witnessing it, let alone living through it. But we're stronger than we think. Humanity has survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that seemed like the end of everything. We'll survive this too. We have to. Because after the three impacts, after the destruction and the chaos and the darkness, there's something else waiting. I didn't see what it was clearly. The vision ended before I could understand that part. But I felt it. A change. A transformation. Something new beginning. Maybe that's what the guardian angels were really protecting. Not just our present, but our future. Not just our survival, but our evolution into something better. I'm not a prophet. I'm not special. I'm just a soldier who saw something he wasn't meant to see and can't stay silent about it. Take from this what you will. Believe it or don't. Prepare or don't. But when the first impact comes, when the sky lights up with fire and the ground begins to shake, remember that you were warned. Remember that someone tried to tell you. And remember that even in the darkest moment, there are guardians watching over us. I saw them. I witnessed their battle. And I know they won't abandon us when we need them most. The countdown is running. Atlas is positioning itself, or being positioned, for whatever role it plays in what's coming. And somewhere out in the darkness of space, 3 massive objects are moving toward Earth. Get ready. Tell the people you love that you love them. Make peace with whatever you need to make peace with. And prepare yourself for the trial that's coming. We're going to need every ounce of strength, courage, and faith we can muster to get through what's ahead. May God protect us all. This is my testimony. This is my warning. This is all I can do. The rest is up to you.